Hi everyone. For those who haven't met me yet, I'm Amy Reynolds. I am a registered dietitian and certified diabetes educator at A New Beginning. I work with Doctors Julie and Ashley, who do the Deeper Work VideoCast on Wednesdays. Last week I talked about intuitive eating and why people don't want to go see a dietitian, all the valid reasons and fears that come along with that. And today I'm going to dive a little bit more into why dieting doesn't work. So why people are recommending intuitive eating, why this is such a thing now. And then also any questions that you guys have, anything that came up last week, any fears, concerns. And also I'm going to hopefully end on a more positive note of some of the many benefits that come along with intuitive eating and some of the milestones that I've had so many of my clients happen upon in their journey toward becoming intuitive eaters. And any questions? I have one question from a member as well, so I'll touch on that when we get to that part. So if anyone's trickling in, feel free to say hi and type in any questions that you have. Okay, so as far as intuitive eating, rejecting the diet mentality is principle number one. And as I talked about last week, that is one of the toughest principles with eating because we grow up in culture. We grow up with our moms and our aunts and our cousins and dads and brothers even diets or talking about their weight or how they don't like their bodies or talking negatively about other people's bodies, peers doing diets, et cetera, et cetera. And the problem with dieting is that, one, it doesn't work, and it doesn't work for a lot of reasons. First and foremost, dieting, and when I talk about dieting, by the way, when I talk about diets, there's two ways that you can think of diet. Diet literally means the food that we eat. When I talk about diets and dieting more in this format, it's going to be that modern sense of restrictive eating. And a lot of people say, well, I'm not being restrictive with the eating, but restriction doesn't necessarily mean low calorie. It can also apply to limiting the number of times a day you can eat or the time of day that you can eat, types of foods you can or can't eat, the amount you can have, et cetera, et cetera. So the idea is being restrictive in some format with the way that you're eating. So the problem with restricting what you eat is both emotional and physical. So from an emotional standpoint, no one likes to be told what to do. So whether it's a diet rules that you're trying to follow or kind of a version of that you've created for yourself, having this idea of what you are allowed and not allowed to eat, that inner rebel is going to come out and say, but what if I want X, Y, and Z? So it already has that piece in us that's like, well, we'll see about that. Then you've got the physical results of restriction. So when you reduce the amount of food or the types of foods, if you're changing things up, your body doesn't really know what's going on. It doesn't know that you are choosing to drink water instead of eating right now, even though you're hungry. It doesn't know that you're taking out the carbs of your meal because you have decided that's what you're going to do. All your body perceives is restriction, which it's going to internalize as starvation, famine. And it doesn't like that. And once your body cares so much about you, all it wants to do is keep you alive. So when you are working toward eating less, moving more, or even just eating less, your body says, oh my goodness, what is happening? Are we okay? What do I need to do? And so if you're asking your body to eat less, it's going to say, okay, we're not getting as much energy as we were before. And it's going to become more efficient. It's super intelligent. It's going to become more efficient. So it's going to burn through the energy that you are consuming more slowly. And that looks like a slow metabolism. So you could eat all the same things, but you're going to metabolize it slower if you've been restricting. And the problem with that is that eventually, because of the increased cravings that are also going to come with that, because of the rebel inside of you, you're going to eventually get to a place where you say, I've had enough of this. And because diets are not sustainable. And so you get to that point and you either go back to eating exactly the way that you were before, or potentially, especially if there's an element of emotional eating or binge eating, then you're a lot more likely to overconsume at that point, to eat even beyond what your body really needs. And you're taking all of that energy and putting it onto a metabolism that doesn't work as well anymore. And that is why 95% of people do not lose weight or lose weight and gain the weight back, or even more so, lose the weight, gain it back, and gain more on top of that. And so you end up with people who have been dieting. I have people in my family been dieting their whole lives. It seems like they've always been on Weight Watchers, or they've always been on something or other. Exercising, they eat vegetables and all of these things, but they don't lose weight. In fact, for the most part, it's been a gradual weight gain over time. And so if any of you are going to falling into that category, my guess would be something about the diet mentality is what has caused that long-term weight gain. And it's super frustrating because you're kind of constantly saying, what can I do better? What can I do about this? And you're doing the one thing that you feel like you can control, and that's food. But the problem is the body doesn't know that. The body sees that as starvation. It sees it as famine, and it's going to do whatever it takes to keep you alive. And after that point, when you've finally gotten fed up with the dieting, then your body says, oh my goodness, finally we're getting all this energy that we need. We better save some for a rainy day. It doesn't know that you're not lost in the middle of a desert with no end in sight. When you're finally able to eat, it's going to say, okay, we've got to store some of this for the next time that we're in a famine. And so you get into this chronic, dieting, overeating, gaining weight, restricting, binging, et cetera, et cetera. There are a lot of other issues that come along with dieting and having a diet mentality as well, such as you sort of lose trust with your body. I would say that goes both ways. So a lot of times people are like, well, I'm fed up with my body. It doesn't do what I want it to do. I don't trust it. It goes both ways. And so part of that is because say you're hungry and you drink water instead, or you're hungry and you don't eat to where you're actually physically or emotionally satisfied. And what that's going to do is it's really going to throw off your ability to know when you're hungry, eat the amount that your body really needs, and to kind of stop at that point. So you're either going to be not ever meeting that fullness level that you need to be to get the nourishment that your body needs, or potentially over consuming, and your body's saying, but I said, thank you, that's enough, and you're not listening. And that's going to cause a lot of miscommunication down the road between acknowledging and being able to honor your hunger and your fullness, which is why those are two of the other principles of intuitive eating. It's not just a free-for-all, it's also really important to listen to those signals. And hunger doesn't always present as, your stomach growling. A lot of people say, well, I'm not hungry all day. But they'll also say, I am irritable, I'm stressed out, I have headaches. Those can also be signs of hunger. We don't always get that pang of hunger in the gut. It can come in other ways as well. Lightheadedness, fatigue. So, if you haven't eaten in a while, it's really important to honor that hunger so that your body trusts you, and then you can over time learn to trust your body again. So those are some of the reasons that dieting doesn't work, that oftentimes we end up in this restrict binge cycle. So some of the questions, I'm going to touch on some of those things that I hear a lot when I start to say these things like intuitive eating isn't for weight loss, that it's not a diet, it's not a meal plan, it's not a way of eating. That's really uncomfortable for a lot of people. And I get that. There's nothing wrong with anybody for wanting to lose weight. I'm going to put a little asterisk on that. So it's really important for intuitive eating is the goal isn't to lose weight. The outcome might be, and I'm going to touch on that in a second and why oftentimes people do lose weight through intuitive eating. But it's really about the mindset. So going into intuitive eating with this, like, I need to lose weight, so I need to eat when I'm hungry, I need to stop when I'm full, I need to exercise, but make sure I enjoy it. This just becomes a new set of rules, and it ultimately kind of acts like a diet, And so trying to, I would say kind of putting weight loss on the back burner and having the focus be, how can I learn to love and accept myself as I am now? Learn to nourish myself from a place of love, not diet from a place of hate. And then you can kind of work on the weight loss down the road. And that's kind of controversial. There are some people who say that no one should ever try to intentionally lose weight. And then you've got tons and tons of people in the world, and then especially in the diet industry, who think that that's the end all be all. And my For me personally, I think it's in between. So, I don't think that people find the ability to love themselves by losing weight. At the same time, if the reason you want to lose weight is because you want to feel better, move better, be able to play with your kids, I think of some of the other reasons. I'm sure there's more. But some of those reasons, because you want to feel good and you want to live a long, happy life. But if you want to lose weight because you want to be loved, you want to be accepted, you want people to find you more attractive because of all of kind of those reasons, because other people want you to lose weight, that's not going to be sustainable. You're not going to get what you're looking for through weight loss. And when you're going into intuitive eating with that mindset, it's going to be really, really difficult to embrace all the different principles of the intuitive eating process. So some common questions other than, am I going to lose weight? I'm going to get to those in a second. First question I get is, what is that? And so I'm going to reiterate some of the things I said last week. Intuitive eating is, I'd say, a mindset and a style of eating that gets you back in touch with your natural ability to regulate your food intake, to be able to acknowledge when you are hungry and give your body the nourishment that it needs, to be able to acknowledge when you are full, and most of the time, call it quits on eating at that point, to be able to eat foods that genuinely satisfy you so that we're not in this mental restrictive place that then leads to overindulgence when you finally let yourself have certain foods that have been off limits. So it's not a diet, it's not a form like a weight loss strategy, but it gets you back to your natural ability to eat. I read somewhere once that intuitive eating would just be called eating if it wasn't for the diet industry, that it really just gets you back in touch with what your body needs, being able to listen to your body, to nourish your body from a place of love and acceptance, not from a place of, I want to look different. And then a lot of people get frustrated because they don't know. They say, I'm doing this, I'm trying to do this. How do I explain this to people? People are asking what I'm doing. My doctor's asking what I'm doing. My husband's asking what I'm doing. I'm trying to explain this to people. As you get to know me over time, you'll probably learn my first response would be like, you don't have to explain it to anybody. But not everybody works that way, and that's totally fine, probably better. So I would say, if you're trying to tell someone what you're doing, the process you're going through, is that you are working toward learning to listen to your body, to get rid of restrictive dieting so that you can focus on really nourishing yourself and getting what your body needs, that you're working toward having a healthy relationship with food and with exercise, and working toward your health. That's not exclusively weight loss, because there's a lot of research that says losing weight isn't necessarily going to improve your health, especially if it's from dieting, from like restrictive dieting. You're probably going to gain it back anyway. So if there were even health benefits from the weight loss, they're probably not going to be sustained because the weight loss won't be either. So that's probably the quick and dirty of how I would explain it. If anyone has questions, it's definitely something that we can work on together. And how do you explain this to other people if you feel the need to, or you just want to bring people in, or you want to help them embrace the intuitive eating process as well. But I get that question a lot. How do I explain what I'm doing to people? Another one is, how am I supposed to know what to eat if I'm just eating what I want and eating when I'm hungry and stop? How am I supposed to know what to eat? Boy. So we're going to get to this a little bit more when I give you like today's challenge towards the end. With deciding what to eat, my first question for people is, what do you want to eat? This is really, really hard for people to answer, because if you've been living your life by a set of guidelines, one after the other, set of rules of what you can eat and how much you can eat and what time of day you can eat, all those natural instincts are usually gone, or at least they're hidden kind of deep down. And so digging to get there is part of this process, and it takes time. So the intuitive eating process does not happen overnight. There are a lot of ups and downs and things to figure out along the way. And one of those is, what do I eat? And so that pulls a couple of the different intuitive eating principles in. One of them is rejecting the diet mentality. So forget the rules, throw the rule book out the window. It's not about listening to what someone else told you to eat or not to eat. Honoring your hunger. So how hungry are you? That's going to determine, how much do you eat? The satisfaction factor. So what sounds good to you right now? What is going to not just physically, but emotionally satisfy you after this meal? If you are craving some pasta or soup or something along those lines, eating a salad with chicken is not going to emotionally satisfy you. It's going to leave you wanting more, even if you're not physically hungry at the end of that meal. What else is going to come into play there? I would say those are probably the main ones. So what do you eat? What do you want to eat? What sounds good to you? Oh, and the other one will be honor your health with gentle nutrition. So what does your body need? What would make you feel physically good and also help you meet the nutritional needs that you have some vague idea, at least, that you have? So that could look like, okay, I'm in the mood for lasagna. Okay, well, I'm going to let myself have this lasagna because there's nothing that's off limits to me. How hungry am I? Moderately hungry. So I'm going to cut myself, a medium-sized piece of lasagna. What are my nutritional needs? Okay, so I've got maybe carbs and proteins and fat in this lasagna. What am I missing? Maybe some fiber or vitamins and minerals. You could add something like a salad to that or a side of broccoli or something like that. This is fresh in my mind because one of my clients ate this week. And so that's kind of a simplified version of what it is to figure out what you want to eat. But it's really confusing when you're first starting in intuitive eating because you've had so many rules, you've had so many restrictions, you have so many ideas about what you are allowed to eat, what you're not allowed to eat, what is healthy, what is not healthy. And it's way overcomplicated, the process. So first and foremost, start with what do you want to eat? How hungry are you? And how can you honor your health if that's something that's important to you? Okay. That's how you know what to eat. Another question. I get a lot of people who say, I can't do that. I'm never going to stop eating. And if I am allowed to eat whatever I want to eat, I'm never going to stop. And this is one of those, I thought about this when Dr. Julie talked about how she tells people she's never going to lie to them. And that's definitely something that I usually start off with in having a dietitian client relationship with someone. I say, you don't know me well yet. You're going to get to, but I'm never going to lie to you. If I don't want to tell you something, I just won't tell you, but I'm not going to lie to you. And so I hope that through just being me and being the brutally honest person that I am and earning trust from people, that when I say you will stop eating, I think usually people, definitely still tentative, but usually that helps people. You will not just eat endlessly. That being said, it might look like that a little bit at first, and that is terrifying, and I really hate to tell you that. But a lot of times if you have been restricting, whether restricting calorie intake or things have been off limits to you in the past, and now you're allowed to eat them, sometimes it does look a little bit like a kid in a candy store at first. Oh, I can have donuts, I can have pasta, I can have ice cream, et cetera, et cetera. And honestly, that's what I want people to do. Because when you give yourself full permission to go eat all of these foods, I think you learn a couple of things. You learn, that doesn't really make me feel great. And not that I want people to feel bad, but I think sometimes when you take away that this is no longer a bad food, this is something you can have whenever you want, one, you kind of are able to say, okay, I can have this. It's not on a pedestal. It's not something that's super special anymore. It's just food. You take some of the power away from it. So that kind of like, if you're able to eat, let's say, a donut for breakfast, and maybe you have some chips for a snack, and then you have a big lasagna for lunch, and maybe some cookies in the afternoon, and some ice cream after that, and then you've got Chinese takeout for dinner. These are a lot of my favorite foods. And then you've got something for dessert in the evening. By the end of that day, probably have not met your nutritional needs. You're not getting all the vitamins and minerals and fiber and protein that your body needs. You're getting probably in excess of some things that your body doesn't need. So you're not going to feel great. And I think that's part of learning the intuitive eating process is how am I going to feel when I eat this? Not just what do I want to eat, what sounds good, but what's going to make me feel good, and not feel good emotionally because I followed the rules, but what makes me feel emotionally satisfied and also physically satisfied and physically well. And so sometimes it looks like a kid in a candy store, but usually that lasts like a day. And then people start saying things like, I really craved a salad. And not that I want you all to go crave salads, but that's a common thing that I get from people. And the other part, I'm going to use one of my favorite analogies. If you're a client of mine, you probably heard it. But I usually say, do you enjoy going to amusement parks? And if people say no, it really ruins my analogy, but we come up with something else. So say you enjoy going to amusement parks, and I'll usually say, how often do you go to the amusement park? And it's usually like once a year, twice a year, maybe a few times a year if someone has like a season pass to Disney, which a lot of people in these parts do. So say, okay, when you go once a year, twice a year, a few times a year. It's this big, exciting event. You go and you stand in all the lines and you ride all the rides. Despite these huge lines, you go and you get all the things that you love to eat there, and you make sure you see all the sights and spend this full day enjoying the amusement park. Okay. What if you could go every single day? And the responses I get is, well, I wouldn't want to go every day. Or if I did go, maybe I'd ride a couple of rides. That's kind of what intuitive eating is going to look like. So you give yourself permission to go to the amusement park every single day. It's not just a special occasion. It's not just this super fun once in a while type of thing that you get to do. It's every single day you can go to the park. You're not going to want to go. If you could eat, I'm trying to think, you could eat cookies every single day, you're going to get to a point where you don't want to eat cookies. Eventually you'll eat them again, but you're not going to want like variety. We get sick of things. We go in and out of phases with food, and deep down our body knows what it needs, and it's not going to be craving cookies all the time. But when you put it on this pedestal, when it's a bad food or something you deemed unhealthy, you've given it this power, this special magical thing that just puts it in this different category. It puts it in this, it's super exciting when you do eat it. It's hard to stop eating it. And when you allow yourself to have it whenever you want, it takes that magic away. And that makes it sound bad. And I'm a little sad for cookies when I say that, but it's like if you could go to the amusement park every day, that's kind of what intuitive eating is. Okay. So answer to that is you will stop eating. You will learn to listen to your body, to honor that fullness, and you won't be craving all of those foods all of the time. All right. The question that I know everyone wants to know is, will I lose weight? Okay. I can't answer that question for an individual. This is going to be individualized. That being said, what intuitive eating does is it's going to repair your metabolism. So when you start listening to your body, feeding it when it needs food, and then honoring that fullness, that when it says thank you, that's enough for now, and you're honoring that and you're waiting until the next time that your body gives you the signal that it needs food, that's going to really do a lot for the metabolism. Also, that along with honoring your health with some gentle nutrition, making sure that you are getting everything that your body needs. That's going to support your metabolism as well and all of your other body functions. It's going to support good hormone development so that you can regulate hunger and fullness. You need a lot of different vitamins and minerals that act as coenzymes through metabolism to help you convert food energy into the energy that your body can use. And so through all of that, people end up having improved metabolic function that in turn helps them to lose weight if that's what their body is intended to do. On top of that, getting out of that restrict binge cycle, healing whatever's down there causing emotional eating. All of that is going to keep you from chronically over consuming, getting more energy than your body needs, and also, continuing to store over time. So that, not continuing to overconsume, paired with an improved metabolism, a lot of times people do lose weight through intuitive eating. That being said, it's really important, like I said, not to go into it with this, I'm only doing this to lose weight. If you're doing it to lose weight, it's going to be a really frustrating journey, and probably not going to work long term. You've got to kind of work on coming to peace with food, coming to peace with your body as is, learning to love yourself regardless, and then you can work on making some subtle changes over time, not having a restrictive mentality or a restrictive diet to get you there. Hope that answers the questions. Any other questions that are coming up, absolutely ask. There's no silly question. There's no wrong question. I have so many of my clients who come in and say, I know I'm not supposed to care about weight loss, but that's not true. I'm not going to judge you for any question that you have. I don't judge anyone for wanting to lose weight. I just want people to have realistic expectations about the process, and also come at that with good intentions, good motives, and I guess not do it for the wrong reasons, if that makes sense. Okay. And I guess I already answered. The next one, is it okay if I still want to lose weight? How can I do both? And I think I answered most of that. I would say, how do I do both? Focusing on the intuitive eating, getting to have a good relationship with food, with your body, with activity, and then working on subtle changes. Working one-on-one with a dietitian at that point might be really helpful, because they might be able to point out things that you could make changes to. Set realistic goals. Setting very realistic goals for yourself is super important. I had someone come in the other day and they're drinking 2-3 bottles of water a day, and they want to work on drinking more. I say, okay, what's a good goal? They say, I should drink 8 to 10. Realistic goals. What can you realistically do now? Because otherwise you just continue to set yourself up for failure and continue to be disappointed and then feel bad about yourself as a result. So small, incremental changes that happen over a long period of time. That's going to be what's going to help someone lose weight intentionally, if that's the goal. If it's a quick fix, it's going to be a quick return as far as the weight comes. So if you lose the weight quickly, it's going to come back just as quickly. And usually, like I said, with more. Okay. How can I be healthy and still eat whatever I want? And so that brings in that intuitive eating principle of honoring your health with gentle nutrition. So what you want is, yes, what sounds good, what would taste good, what would be satisfying, and that is going to be sometimes pasta, it's going to be pizza or enchiladas and all of those things. And none of those foods are unhealthy, but if you're honoring your health with gentle nutrition, that's going to be, okay, what do I need to add to this? Or what kind of balance do I need in this meal to give my body what it needs to really honor my health in this process? So it's not necessarily about what am I not supposed to have, but what am I missing? What am I over consuming at the expense of something else? So usually it's more of an imbalance issue, is getting maybe more carbs, protein, fat than your body needs, and not enough of the fiber and vitamins and minerals. It doesn't mean you're supposed to get rid of the thing that has a lot of carbs, protein, and fat, because you need all of those things. Those are essential nutrients that your body needs. But if you're getting more of that and not enough of something else, that's going to throw everything out of whack. So that's part of the being healthy, is making sure you're getting everything that your body needs. And then it might come down to, what are maybe different predispositions that you have. Do you have a family history of heart disease? Do you have a family history of diabetes? Do you actively have diabetes? Do you have celiac disease? So some of those things might require a little more manipulation of the way that you're eating. So that, again, usually things with that, I would recommend one-on-one counseling with a dietitian, just because, there's no one size fits all when it comes to the way that we eat. Because, like I talked about last time, there's so many things that food is. It's not just nutrients. It's not just fuel. So being able to do both, thinking, okay, say you're supposed to have X amount of carbs in a meal. This is exclusively, for example, someone who has diabetes. You are supposed to eat carbs if you have diabetes, by the way. So say you have a certain amount that you're supposed to have in that meal. it's not about not eating things that have carbs in it. It's about, okay, I have this amount. What's something that would physically satisfy me, emotionally satisfy me? And then how do I balance that? If maybe I'm eating the pasta, means, okay, I'm not going to do the breadstick because I want more of the pasta. How can I balance out that meal and get everything that my body needs? Make sure I am satisfying my emotional and physical needs with food, but also honoring my health by getting everything that my body needs and not over consuming something that would be harmful to me. And what that's called, by the way, I think I said it last time, is medical nutrition therapy, which is medically necessary dietary interventions. And that doesn't mean, oh, I'm going to try cutting out carbs, or I'm going to try cutting out gluten, or I think I might be sensitive to something. This is a medical diagnosis with evidence-based nutrition interventions that can be really helpful for controlling or preventing the worsening of a disease state. So keeping that in mind is that I am pretty particular about there needs to be a reason if you're going to have sort of restrictions to the way that you eat, and then we're going to find a way to make it work within the intuitive eating realm as well. Another common response I get is, my body's broken. I can't trust it to tell me what, when, or how much to eat. And I get why people feel that way. You know, you've been trying to do everything for your body, trying to eat the vegetables, trying to drink the water, trying to get the movement, and still your body doesn't listen. It doesn't lose weight. Maybe it gains weight, or it loses weight, then it gains back, or you don't feel it. And there's so many reasons why people just feel like my body's broken, it doesn't work. Maybe your labs aren't good, et cetera, et cetera. And like I said, it's a process going through intuitive eating to get to a place where you can trust your body again, and also so that it can trust you. I think keeping in mind, like, your body's number one goal is to keep you alive, and it's pretty miraculous what it will do in order to do that. So I think trusting it a little blindly, trying out the intuitive eating process and seeing what happens, realizing that you are going to be able to get back to this place where you are able to recognize hunger and satisfy that and then move on. Other things could be in play too, you know. Some people have metabolic disorders that are undiagnosed, hormone irregularities that are undiagnosed. And so making sure that if you're feeling like I'm doing something and the result is not what I expected, it might be a good time to go get some like routine lab work to see, you know, is there this other reason? Because that can be really frustrating. People who have PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, who really, really struggle to lose weight despite any interventions that they've tried. And there might be, you know, medical intervention that is necessary. Food is not medicine. It can sometimes make us feel good or help us with disease prevention or control, but it's not medicine. And so not ignoring some of those other things that might be going on that you can't solve through food. We've really put food on this pedestal, thinking that it's going to be the end all, cure all. And like I said last time, I really wish that it was. I'd be making a lot of money, but it's not. So giving nutrition the appropriate amount of attention, the appropriate amount of thought, not overdoing it, not giving it more power than it really has. I got a question from someone last week. What is your take on intuitive eating for someone in an active eating disorder? I was listening to an RD who specializes in eating disorders, and she said it just doesn't work for people who have an active eating disorder because all hunger cues are out of whack. She says that mechanical eating and pretty structured approach is necessary, possibly for even a couple of years before intuitive eating is truly possible. So that is absolutely true, that intuitive eating is not appropriate for everybody. Starting in blindly in this like intuitive eating process might not be appropriate for everybody if you aren't able to recognize hunger and fullness at all. Someone who's been restrictive eating for a long time, sometimes that's the case, and starting with something a little more structured, coming from a dietitian who's able to calculate all of your nutritional needs and create a meal plan that might work for you, might be the place to start. And I have started there with some people, especially people recovering from anorexia or bulimia. I usually start with intuitive eating with people with binge eating or emotional eating, but not always. So some people do benefit from that structure, especially until they have normal hunger and fullness cues. That being said, the goal is not to stay there in a structured meal plan. So I gave someone that I worked with today a structured meal plan to make sure that they would be able to meet all of their nutritional needs. They typically underconsume. But I told them, this is temporary. This is a guideline to get you to where you can learn how to look at a meal and know that it's going to meet your needs, that you know that this is an appropriate amount, an appropriate balance of foods that you can use as a guideline. The ultimate goal for anyone that I work with, any type of eating disorder they have, is to be able to get to a place of intuitive eating, to where they don't need a lot of structure in order to eat, that they're able to maybe take that structured meal plan, then become a little more flexible with it, and then get to where they're not following it at all. And so, again, nutrition is super individualized. I would say some people are not appropriate to just jump into intuitive eating, and a structured approach might be more beneficial. But I can't say for certain for the person who asked. It would really require one-on-one counseling to get to that and to be able to answer that question for that person. So keep that in mind. This is all informational and educational only, and is not a substitution for medical or therapeutic care. Okay, so common frustrations with intuitive eating, like I said, trying to explain to other people, gaining weight. So like we said, it might look like a kid in a candy store for like a day or two. And also maybe you have an impaired metabolism and now we're going back, instead of restricting, to eating a normal amount of food. And that might very temporarily, hopefully temporarily, cause a little bit of weight gain. And that's one reason that I really recommend that people don't weigh themselves. I recommend that for every single person that I work with. I don't care if they are overweight, normal weight, underweight. I don't think that anyone benefits from getting onto a scale, especially if that number tells you something about who you are or how much you matter, because it doesn't. And then on top of that, it doesn't tell you the whole story nutritionally. It doesn't tell you, did you honor your hunger yesterday? Have you been honoring your fullness? Are you honoring your health with gentle nutrition? Are you engaging in joyful movement or appropriate exercise? It doesn't tell you any of that information. So it's not useful. It's not beneficial. If anything, it typically either reinforces unhealthy behaviors or makes people feel bad about themselves. And it almost doesn't matter what that number is. It usually just leads to disappointment or unhappiness. So take it or leave it. My recommendation is to not have a scale at home, unless there's very few medical reasons that someone could have a scale or need a scale. So I would say at least put it out of sight, out of mind. Another frustration, not losing weight. It might take some time. It might be that, maybe you're at the weight that your body's supposed to be. If you don't think that's true and intuitive eating isn't leading to weight loss, then that might be time to see a dietitian and work on little changes that you can make, small, sustainable changes that you can make to the way that you eat or exercise. Or even potentially, like I said, having a doctor check everything out to make sure that there's not something else going on. Really frustrating part of intuitive eating, and this is something most of my clients who are going through this process struggle with, is listening to everybody else talk about their diets or be on their diets. And a lot of people just get really annoyed. Like, I'm over dieting. I'm in this intuitive eating thing and I think this is great and I'm done. And they get really fed up with diet culture, and it's just obnoxious to hear people talk about their diets. The other part that can be really frustrating is watching people diet and lose weight. That's so hard. And I commend anyone who's trying to become an intuitive eater, who's sitting at that work lunch table watching someone eat their salad and talk about their keto diet and how they've lost 10, 20 pounds. That is so hard. And This may not be true for everyone. The thing is really not comparing yourself to other people, as hard as that may be. But I would say for the majority of people, 95%, tell me if they kept that weight off in a year, in 2 years. Because if it's not sustainable the way that they're eating, if they're not meeting their nutritional needs, if their body believes that they're in a starvation, famine mode, it's probably not going to last. So just like times that maybe you have lost weight and then gained it back, keep that in mind, is that this is probably a short-term result that they're having, but super frustrating nonetheless. So the ultimate goal of intuitive eating is essentially to break the diet binge cycle, break the restrictive diet binge eating, emotional eating cycle, so that you can get back to just eating the amount of food that's going to make you well nourished, make you feel good, eating foods that make you feel good, but also honoring your health through nutrition. And a lot of people do lose weight through that. So I'll leave that there. I want to end on a positive note. Some of the things that people come to along their intuitive eating journey really early on sometimes, and sometimes further on. One of the first things I hear people say is, they've let themselves eat what they want. Again, sometimes it looks like a kid in the candy store. Sometimes it really doesn't. Regardless, they'll say, I don't enjoy some of the foods that I thought that I liked. So one example, there was someone who used to, when she would binge, she would eat potato chips, and that was her go-to. And when she really learned how to eat mindfully and how to embrace intuitive eating, she doesn't even like potato chips, and so she doesn't eat them. She gave herself permission to eat foods that she enjoyed, and potato chips ultimately wasn't one of them. It's one of my favorites. So that's not been my outcome, but that was hers. Someone else recently told me that it's around Halloween, and they ate a couple of those like little Butterfinger candies, and like it wasn't even that good. So they had, one or two realize they didn't even like it anymore. Or maybe they never did, but it was on this pedestal, this bad food pedestal. They realized they didn't like it, so they didn't eat it anymore. One thing people will say is that they're like craving fruits and vegetables. Like I said, a lot of times people might be like, okay, I'm going to go eat this burrito, or I'm going to go eat this pizza. And within a few days, they're saying, I got kind of sick of that. I really, really wanted some roasted vegetables. I really wanted this salad that I've been thinking about. I really wanted some good green beans, or whatever those people are in the mood for. It's one of my favorite things is when people come in saying like, all I really want is a salad. And again, not promoting salads at all, but getting to a place where you are starting to listen to your body, and it's going to tell you what it wants and what it needs. Another milestone is realizing that you can be satisfied with less food. So when you're not eating for emotional reasons, when it's not a relationship with food, when you're not turning to it for anything other than nourishment and some enjoyment, or you're not binging as a result of having restricted prior, then people realize, I used to order all of this food. I used to order, 2 sandwiches and this side and that side and a milkshake. And I only ate like one of the burgers and one of the sides of my milkshake. And people realize when they start to kind of listen, when they're not in this constant state of starvation and then needing to overconsume, that they are really usually satisfied with a lot less food than they thought. Acknowledging when they crave food for emotional reasons. This was a big breakthrough with a client that I have. And she said, I was really stressed out at work, and I thought, I'm going to go get a snack. And then she stopped, and she realized that's not going to make me feel better. I'm not hungry. This is not ultimately going to make me feel better. So she didn't go have it. And had she been hungry, I'm sure she would have had a snack, but she acknowledged that she was reaching out for food for emotional reasons only, and acknowledged that this is not going to make me feel better. This is not a healthy way to cope with how I'm feeling right now. So that was really cool. And then one of the biggest ones, usually this kind of comes kind of out of the blue. People just sort of realize it. They're like, I don't really think about food as much anymore. A lot of times when I first meet with someone, I ask them what percentage of the day they think about food, nutrition, their body, their weight. And most of my clients come in saying something usually in the 75 to 90% of their day. That's a significant portion of the day. And then suddenly people stop thinking about it so much. When you're not restricting it, you're not thinking about it all day long, you're not following some diet that has you counting all of your macros or what have you. It frees up so much mental energy to do other things. And so many people will say like they're being more productive. They are trying new hobbies, or just in general, like they're not thinking about food all day long. And that is so freeing for people. There's so much more to life than the food that we eat. And getting to that point where you're able to do more of the things that genuinely bring you joy is also just another awesome side effect of intuitive eating. Okay, so I am going to wrap this up with a challenge if anyone's up for it. The challenge is, and this is one of the first things that I have clients do, you're going to make a list of foods that you would eat if you could eat anything that you wanted. So a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner. If you could eat anything you wanted, nothing's off limits. I would say come up with 2 to 3 things for each meal. And I would say try not to have it all be like your favorite meals that you go to restaurants. So think about if you were going to make something at home and you could have anything you wanted, what would that look like? So part 2 of the challenge is go eat it if you're ready. If you're not, that's totally okay. Just bring some of those ideas for next week and we can chat about kind of what came up, what that looked like. And then if anyone did go eat some of these things and start giving themselves permission to eat it, we'd love for you to share that as well. Okay, so that is going to be it for today, our second episode of Chew on This. I hope you all are able to watch this over the next week and give me some feedback. Let me know questions that you have. Hopefully I've addressed some of the concerns that you've had about intuitive eating, and we'll tune in again next week. Thank you so much.